Hey, Strengths, this is Kathy here, and in today's lesson, I am coming with some practical suggestions on how to actually practice. Okay, so there's an old saying that practice makes perfect. I'm going to tell you right now that that is 100% a lie. Practice does not make perfect. You have to, in order to make it perfect, you have to practice perfectly. So these are some suggestions I give to my students whenever they're learning to practice. Number one, when you're first learning to practice, you want to kind of organize your practice. You have different types of skills. You have warm ups, you'll have exercises, you might have scales, and then you might actually have the music that you're learning. Okay. And the music that you're learning, it's music that's new or music that is old learn music that you're trying to perfect. Okay. So when it comes to music that is new, what I suggest you do is kind of analyze the music. What are some things you need to look at? Are there any dynamic changes? Are there any key changes? What's the tempo? What's the time signature? Is there a particular style of music is it supposed to be? What kind of sharps and flats do you have? Do you have any other natural accidentals in there that you might miss? So those are some things that you want to look for when you're first learning a new piece. Then I also recommend that you always constantly listen to a new piece, um, not just the version that you have, but listen to as many different versions online as you can find of it. For example, if you're learning how to play the New World Symphony on piano, then you want to find as many different arrangements from orchestral arrangements to piano solos to flute solos, anything. You want to listen to it as much as you possibly can, just to kind of get the feel of it and the idea of how it's played. Okay. Uh, then another thing I would suggest you do is you just kind of do what's called a sight read. You just kind of play through it and then try to notice any areas that you are really, really struggling that you really do not understand. Focus on those areas. And then as you work with your teacher, you're going to talk with her about those areas that you're struggling with. For music that you've already previously have learned, what I recommend doing is going through it one time, straight through one time, even record yourself as you're playing through it one time, and then kind of notice what areas you are struggling with. Listen to the recording. If you record yourself, listen to it and decide, okay, what are some things that I need to work on? And then I want you to spot check on those areas specifically. You play them until you get it correct. If you mess up, you stop right there immediately when you're playing. You stop right there and you fix what you made wrong. Okay. um, the rule of thumb that I give my students is if you can play it 7 to 10 times correctly in a roll, then you're learning how to play it correctly. If you play it 6 times in a row correctly and you mess up, then you start all over again. So you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4. You mess up on the fourth time, you start back over again with 1. So you go 1, 2, 3. So you have to do it correctly 7 to 10 times in a row before you go on. I also always suggest you start off on a slower tempo and then work your way up to a faster tempo. Okay, so those are some suggestions for like learning new music or learning old music. Um, the order that I always recommend my students do is we do warm-ups. Warm-ups are music that they have mastered, that they've gone through, and we just continuously work on those right there. Then I always recommend that they do exercises. Exercises are skills that they are learning. And I usually apply them to, a lot of times at first to D scales or D majors or C major scales or whatever scales we've been working with. I usually apply it to those type of scales right there. So like if you're learning a new type of rhythm, if you're learning a new type of style of music, we're going to work with those with the scales. And sometimes there are exercises that are built into your lessons, and those will also be lessons that we've applied as well into the exercise. Okay, then the scales are just to kind of also kind of help you warm up, make sure that you're remembering where your fingers are, and or either on the violin, on the viola, or on the piano, or whatever instrument you're on. And then we go into the music, both the new music and the old music, and you just kind of focus on those right there. All right, so those are my strategies and my suggestions that I give all my students when it comes to learning to practice. Let me know if you have any other suggestions that you use, and I will see you next time.